this is your unemployed chef. I haven't done a dessert recipe in quite a while, and I think you guys would enjoy this a whole lot. So I'm making some delicious, delicious chocolate mousse. I love chocolate, anything chocolate. I would have to say that chocolate mousse, if Lust was in a food form, it'll be chocolate mousse. So let's get started. If you remember my ice cream video, I had a recipe for condensed milk. Today's condensed milk recipe is actually slightly different because I noticed that I did make a mistake. Oops. We'll get to that. So to start off, you're going to need 2 cups of cold milk. You don't want it heated up. So I have 2 cups of cold milk in a large saucepan. I have my measured out and blended, well blended raw sugar. You can use white sugar. I use raw sugar. It doesn't raise your glycemic index as bad, and it's a little bit healthier. But this is dessert. Is there really a healthy dessert? You're going to need some cocoa powder, unsweetened. This is up to your discretion of how much you want to use. The more chocolate, the better, I say. And to top it off, you're going to need some shards of or shaved dark chocolate. I'm using a 50% cocoa dark chocolate. The higher the cocoa content, the more bitter it is. But since we're going to make this, I would say pretty sweet, dark chocolate is a great balance against milk chocolate. To get started, I'm going to take my measured out sugar and let it fully dissolve in my 2 cups of milk first before I put the heat on. That's very important. I noticed that the first time I did it, when I did put the heat on, my condensed milk had a lot of skin on it and a lot of residue coming up from the top, and it wasn't quite as smooth as I wanted it to be. So we're going to try again and just let it fully dissolve. It may clump up a little bit, so I just take my rubber spatula and I press all the granules down towards the bottom of the pan, and I just stir. So when I do this, I shouldn't see any sugar in my pan. And also for good measure, and also because I forgot again, you're going to need 1 cup of heavy cream, 1 to 2 cups. We'll see. Make sure this is chilled. We are going to whip this. So make sure whatever bowl that you have, preferably a metal or glass bowl, since those hold cold a lot better. I would say stick it in the freezer. That's the best case scenario. Or if you don't have a freezer because you still live in 1939, chill it in your fridge. My sugar is fully dissolved. You can see that my milk has changed some color. And now I'm going to put this on a low simmer. I'm going to keep cooking this until this thickens up, like in my previous video. And when you're cooking condensed milk, do not move away from the stove. I'm just saying from experience. If you don't heed my warning, you will have PTSD. My milk has started to simmer, and you're going to let this simmer for about 30 minutes or until it has reduced in volume. So 2 cups of condensed milk would reduce to about 14 ounces. What you also want to make sure to do when you're making condensed milk is, if you can see like this residue at the top, feel free to just skim that off the top so your condensed milk is nice and clear. And don't forget to stir the pot. Here's a pro tip. When you're stirring your condensed milk, make sure you give it a gentle stir. Don't go crazy. It will pick up this residue and it may not make for a good looking condensed milk. We keep things fresh and sexy on this show. Condensed milk has thickened up, as you can see. Let me make that look a little bit better. Here you go. If it's doing this, that means that it's thickened up. And when it cools down, it's going to thicken up even more. Once it gets to this point in your pot, do not go any further because it will turn into caramel and you don't want that. So what I do, I turn off my heat, take it off the heat, and I just scrape up that excess film and I let it cool for about 10 minutes. After several minutes of whipping and whipping and whipping, this is the texture that you want to start to see. I'm going to whip this a little bit more and I should be done. And that's when I'll add in my condensed milk, my sweetener, and my chocolate. This is what your whipped cream should look like. And now it's time to add in the chocolate and the condensed milk. Give that a mix. Another pro tip, I know I'm that good. For chocolate, it's very hard for it to mix with other things. It's best to add just a little bit of water to your chocolate powder, mix it up, and then pour it into whatever you're making. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start off with about 5 tablespoons of chocolate. Heaping tablespoons. You can't get enough chocolate. Two and 5. So I kept adding chocolate, or I kept adding fruity and slip. You're gonna keep adding water to your chocolate until it gets to about this consistency. I thought that I shouldn't add too much water because I don't want to water down this recipe. And as you can see, it's kind of like a chocolate sludge-ish. It smells like heaven right now. Mix it in. We don't want to see no white. This is the good form of segregation. Look at that airiness. Look at that cloudiness. That sponginess. Awesome. Woo! I think I'm done. Now it's time to put my mousse in a serving dish. Your dish should have been in the freezer up until this point, so take it out now. Ice, ice, baby. Just take your mousse, put it in a dish. It doesn't really matter what kind of dish that you use. Just make sure that it's easy to serve and eat the mousse out of. It's not as easy as taking the ice cream out the bowl, but good things never come easy. My mousse does need a little bit more sweetener, so what I'm going to use, I like to use a agave to be kind of like a finishing sweetener for my desserts. And this is all to taste. And since we are going to top this with dark chocolate, this will also strike a balance between sweet and semi-sweet. And I just mix it in my serving bowl, tray thing. I'm going to set this to the side. And now it's time for the dark chocolate. So this is optional. It just adds a nice pop of color and texture. And you want to make sure that you have a nice, sharp, strong knife, similar to this. It's easier if you let your chocolate sit out at room temperature, so it can chop easily. It doesn't have to be perfect. I don't want too fine of a chop and not something that's very hard to bite in. I'm going to take one more. I made these a little bit bigger. I want a contrast between my small and bigger pieces. Sprinkle that on. This is your unemployed chef, and always chase that yum.